I want to add in some piano, just something like that's not super noticeable, but that's there, and maybe some strings. Welcome back to the Balance for Life podcast, where we're going to discuss things that we hope will help you improve and really focus your mindset on what you want to become and make some positive, lasting changes in your life.
Perfect. If you like what you hear, even if you don't like what you hear, I'm going to throw that out there. Either way, leave us a 5-star review.
Yeah. Or if a 2-star review would be better than no review.
It's true. Yeah. Just leave a review.
But we like 5 stars.
Yeah, we like 5 stars. But I'll tell you what, the 2 stars will help us know where we can improve too.
Exactly, it's true.
So, if there's somewhere we can improve, let us know. If you like what you hear, give us a 5-star review. That's how we're going to grow and develop and build this community. Don't forget to join us on socials. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all at Balance for Life Podcast. That's the number 4, like we say every week. Mm-hmm. It's the number 4 Balance for Life Podcast. And then on Twitter, we are at Adam and Perry.
And then
we're also on YouTube.
We're on YouTube, so
watch
just
us.
Search Balance for Life.
Yeah.
Today we want to talk about a few tips on how to avoid or at least limit student loan debt. Yeah. Because that's something that can really cripple somebody for the rest of their life, and it has a huge impact on your overall financial health and your ability to save for the future, save for retirement. And there are situations where maybe student loan debt is okay, but limiting that to something that's manageable so that you're set up for the future to be in a better position financially.
Yeah, and I think we talk about how it's going to help you financially, right? Because that obviously is going to be the number one key aspect that we're talking about here. But having that huge burden of student loan debt, we could also talk about how that's going to affect you mentally. The stress involved with it, how it's going to affect you physically. That has a physical
impact.
Yeah, that's going to have a physical impact. How
spiritual.
Having all of that stress could affect you spiritually. So really, like we've talked about before, is how these are going to tie into all of the pillars.
Definitely.
Really, but I think this one's going to be big time in the financial aspect. But think about the ways that it could also affect you in other areas of your life. So stress and the added burden of that.
If you're listening to this and you've already amassed a huge amount of student loans, like, we're not going to go into how to get rid of student loan debt in this episode, but we encourage you to still listen because you may have a child or a nephew or whatever who is going to be going to college soon. This information might be helpful for them. So we're going to share a little bit of our past experiences and the things that we did and succeeded at or didn't do well and learned from that can help others. So I recognize that even though I graduated from my bachelor's degree about 12 years ago, college costs more than it did. So it's harder now than it was then, but it's still doable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's still doable. And like you said, we're going to talk about our experiences and what we did that maybe could help. So those of you that are listening that do have student loan debt, don't think that you're the only ones, because I too have student loan debt. And I don't even have a degree, so maybe I'm not the person that you want to take advice from. But
you can learn from Adam's failures.
You can learn from my mistakes. And those of you that are still thinking about what you want to do, what you want to be when you grow up, maybe you can learn from my mistakes as well. So hopefully we'll help you out a little bit.
And then we're going to learn from my successes. So we're just going to compare. We have a case study here, okay?
Yeah.
And I haven't done everything in life well, but this is something I did do well. And it was because I had some guidance from people who had gone before me, and my wife was a huge part of this success. Actually, I would give her like 85% of the credit and me 15%.
That's big.
But we both got a bachelor's degree, and I got a master's degree, and we did not get a single dollar of student loan debt. And so, kind of tooting my own horn, but also, like I say, most of the credit doesn't belong to me, but I want to share some of the things that helped me to do that.
Yeah, and that is truly an amazing feat. I think people can do it, and there are a lot of people that do are
Yeah,
finish
people do
complete college. Yeah, people do it
without having rich parents to rely on, because I grew up really poor, actually.
Yeah.
So I did not have, mom and dad to pay for my college. I had to do it myself.
Yeah.
Well, and a little help from Uncle Sam.
Hmm.
But we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. So I think where we want to start off, though, is there are going to be some degree choices. There are going to be some job choices, career choices that you're going to make that are going to require student loans. I mean,
and even a lot.
Yeah, let's be honest. If you want to go be a doctor, if you want to go be a lawyer, there's no way that you're going to complete that schooling. I mean,
unless you have rich parents.
You're talking $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 in some cases in student loan debts. If you want to go to an Ivy League school, if you want to do some of these things that people are doing without rich parents, you're going to get some student loan debt. So what we want to talk about today too is just being smart about it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, thinking about what you want to do and living within your means so that you only accumulate that debt that you need.
Exactly. And we've mentioned the Money Guy show before. Their recommendation is that you figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How much money will I make in my first year? And the amount that you're expecting to make in your first year, don't go over that amount in student loan debt. So if you think you're going to start out with a $50K a year job, don't get more than $50,000 in student loans. If you're going to be a doctor, maybe you're going to start out making $200,000 a year, and you might have to get $200,000 in student loans, right? So we're not saying don't get student loans necessarily, but if you can avoid it, that is ideal.
Yeah.
Like Adam said, there's careers where, hey, you're going to be able to pay that off in 5 years. Awesome. So that's a big factor. Yeah. So we're going to give you 4 tips here, and we'll just take each one at a time.
I think I'm seeing a trend here, Perry.
What?
With the number 4.
Oh, yeah. 4 is the magic number, isn't it?
We like the number 4. Although I like 5 too.
Oh. 6 is my favorite number.
Oh.
But balanced 6 life doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that doesn't really get us very far.
So let's talk about our first tip, Adam.
So tip number 1 is there are obviously a lot of different ways that you can get an education. When we talk about education, we're not necessarily just talking about schooling.
Bachelor's degree.
Right? Bachelor's degree. There are a lot of jobs out there that you can do without any degree at all. So we want to look at some alternative options to schooling, which for me was a better option than traditional. It was a better option for me than traditional schooling. I did try the traditional schooling route, and like I said, we're going to learn from my experiences and my mistakes and Perry's successes. So I did actually collect some student loan debt without even getting a degree in that. Or I chose a field, one of the things I mentioned last week, that I did massage therapy school, and I ended up with quite a bit of student loan debt from massage therapy school, and then was not able to find a job as a massage therapist. So like I said, you're going to learn some from my mistakes, which is I do have student loan debts that I'm not happy about.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I wish I would have done differently, is thought a little bit more about what I wanted to do with my life, and maybe pursued different options that would have been better, that would have not led to so much student loan debt without having a degree.
If I could go back in time and spend more time figuring out what I wanted to do, I would have done that, because even though I was able to avoid student loan debt, I still kind of went this really roundabout way to get to where I am, which is okay. But I don't think it hurts to spend a year after high school or a couple of years really figuring out what you want to do instead of just jumping into school. Yeah. And so that can be huge too.
Yeah, which I think that is another one of our points.
Yeah, I kind of jumped the gun there.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll get there.
We'll come back to
I mean, it is an important step, an important point. So talking about alternative education, right, we wanted to talk about, first of all, trade schools, right, vocational schools, things like the
electrician, plumbing.
Apprenticeship programs.
Yeah.
There are applied technology colleges, right? We have Mountainland, MTech here in Utah County. There's Davis up in Layton, there's Ogden, Weber. There, I'm sure if you're
Probably
in a different
wherever
state,
you are.
wherever you are, there's going to be some technical colleges. You can go get a welding certificate.
Yeah.
Right? Welders are in very high demand right now and will pay very high.
You can make a pretty good wage.
You can make a very good wage as a welder. So
Yeah.
there are options that way.
Coding boot camp.
Coding boot camps, culinary schools,
Yeah.
things like that.
So basically, you need to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? Can I make enough money? And it doesn't have to be $200,000 a year to be enough money, but think about, what kind of lifestyle do I want? How much money do I need to do that? And then what can I do that I would enjoy that would bring me that result? And then figure out, how do I get there? What kind of education do I need, if any? Or is it just experience that'll get me there? Right?
Yeah, it's true. And I think one of the things that you just mentioned is going to be a huge key in all of this as well, is finding something that you enjoy, right? There's the saying out there that's, find something you enjoy doing and you'll never work a day in your life. Yeah. And so I think even if you don't, like you said, even if you don't have student loan debt, if you have a degree or if you have a career path that you don't enjoy, that you're not passionate about, it's still going to be a miserable life no matter how much money you're making.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's one of the things too, is you need to figure out how much money you need to live the lifestyle that you want, and what's something that you will enjoy doing that's not going to feel like trudging through your life every single day.
Yeah.
So
because having enough income is important. Enjoying what you're doing, I would say, is much more important. So
absolutely. I think too, aside from alternative schools, we could talk about just work experience.
Right.
There are some jobs. My current job that I work in actually has a fairly decent salary. I mean, it's not amazing. It's, I would say, roughly below average. But we want to talk about things where you maybe don't need a degree. Get a job or find a career that doesn't require a degree. There are many out there. And sometimes all you need is to get work experience. You start at a low-level, lower-paying job, and you can work your way up through into management, possibly.
Exactly.
Even without a degree.
That is possible to do. So the example I know how to talk about is software, because I've worked for software companies my whole life. So I started out doing implementation. So I worked with new customers, helped them get onboarded, and then pass them off to the account manager.
Yeah.
And then I eventually worked my way up to be an account manager. And I worked with smaller businesses, and then I worked my way up to working with larger businesses, and then larger businesses. And that for me was a way to increase my income and do what I'm good at, what I usually enjoy most of the time. Like every day at work, if I could be playing music every day for a living, or doing this every day for a living, I'm working on that on the side, right? But I do get some satisfaction out of helping people improve their business by offering whatever product. And so you actually don't need a degree for what I do for a living. And so I have this master's degree, right? Yeah. So there are a lot of things. You can start out doing technical support or support for a software company. You work your way up.
Right.
And that can be a good way to do that.
Right. My job, I work in the utilities industry, and for my job specifically, I don't need a degree. There are some jobs in the company that I work for that do require a degree, but the job that I do and kind of the path that I've taken to get there is through cathodic protection or pipeline integrity type work, which didn't require a degree, but I've attained certificates throughout, and I've done small classes and gotten industry accreditation for that job, and have been able to actually make a pretty successful go of it. Like you, there are things that I would rather be doing. If I could play music full time or do this full time, then that would be a much better choice for me. But I think that's another thing that we're going to talk about maybe after we talk about the tips, is how can you get yourself into a position where you want to be rather than where you have to be.
Right, exactly.
So
I think that's great. Let's talk about tip number 2, Adam.
Oh, yeah. Tip number 2 is, if you do choose to get an education, I think that's the first thing, is we need to choose that we're going to get an education
or not?
Yeah.
And I think getting like a traditional bachelor's degree brings more value than just the job you get. It can bring a lot of value. You just learn valuable things, but it's becoming more and more something that you don't have to be successful in life.
Right. But I think that choice, right, making the choice to get a degree rather than doing it because you think it's the right thing to do, I think that's going to be a key to actually helping you do it with minimizing your student loan debt,
right?
Because it's something you're choosing to do, and so you're going to look for ways to make it easier on yourself.
Right.
So I think that's the first thing, is choosing to go to school and then choosing the right school to go to.
Yeah.
So there are different options, and there are
so many different options.
There are many options. I think
many
different options. Even here in Utah, we have, within an hour drive of where we are, we have probably 6 different schools, between junior colleges and state colleges and community colleges and full-time universities. We have private universities. We have all these different options out there, and I think pretty much all of them probably have a different price point for what your degree is going to cost. So I think once you make that choice to go to college, looking at the different prices of the colleges, and for the degree that you're looking for, do you need an Ivy League stamp on your degree, or would it be just as good to get one from a local state university?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think choosing that affordable school is going to be a key, because a lot of times once you have that degree, does it really matter what name is stamped at the bottom of it?
Right.
Or the top? I don't even know. I don't have a degree, so I don't even know where it's stamped.
I don't know. I haven't looked at my transcript in a decade. So if we're going to use, my experience as like, here's a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at a few different options. The school I wanted to was the cheapest option, and I had a couple older siblings that had gone there. It was Brigham Young University, Idaho, so the lesser of the BYUs. You've got Hawaii and Provo, Utah, as well, that are both options, and Idaho's the cold one where it snows a ton, and the sidewalks are icy the whole winter. And,
not the one on the beach where you step out of class and go surfing.
Right. So I chose that one because it was inexpensive. I grew up in California, and there were a couple other options around there. In-state tuition is usually cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
The BYUs are a little bit unique in that they're pretty cheap anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a member of the Latter-day Saint Church, then it's you get in-state tuition even if you're from out of state, which is nice.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So I got in-state tuition even though I went out of state.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a key, right? In-state tuition is a factor in how affordable a school is, but tuition when I went was like $1,800 a semester. It's insanely cheap. And now I looked it up the other day. I can't remember. I think it was like $2,500. So it's gone up like everything, but that's still insanely cheap. You can pay for that on your own without getting student loans if you want.
Yeah.
That's doable, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to avoid student loan debt, I think so many schools are cheap and still really good schools. You can get a really good education at a cheap school.
Absolutely. I think another thing that we can talk about too, that's probably very much the exception rather than the rule, but if you happen to have a family member working at the college or university, pick a school that maybe you have a family member working at, because you can get discounted tuition because you have a family member working there.
Yeah.
So use that to your advantage.
Picking an affordable school, right, the right choice for you, and then living within your means.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few things that you can do, and I think we've heard some of the cliches like eating ramen, right, because ramen's really cheap. But, my wife and I, while we were going through school, we ate a lot of rice and potatoes and ramen, and just we didn't spend as much money on food as we do now.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't have kids either, but
that's true.
That was part of it. But we ate really cheap. We didn't go out to eat very often, and we just tried to really live within our means because we didn't have a lot of money coming in, and we had school to pay for.
Yeah, that's very smart. Another thing to think about is, do you really need a car?
Yeah.
While you're going to school, I know a lot of people.
Everything's right there in a lot of schools.
Yeah, and a lot of people can do their entire education without a car, or with a very cheap car that they maybe pay cash for in high school or just out of high school.
Right.
And they use that as their primary vehicle to get them through college and whatever little things they need, and then they can sell it when they're done and pass it on to another starving student.
Exactly. So my wife and I didn't have a car at first for the first year maybe of college. Okay. And we lived right next to campus. We were able to walk to all our classes. We worked on campus, so we were able to walk to work. the thing that sucked was groceries, because we would ride our bike to the grocery store and then we would ride home with these bags of groceries, and I didn't enjoy that. It was a sacrifice, but it was worth it to end up where we ended up.
That's true. That's a
So
good point. That's a good point.
can you afford to not have a car?
Yeah.
Right? Your car insurance, your gas. I mean, there's things that come with that.
That's true. It'll save you a lot of money.
Well, especially now, like you have Uber and stuff. If you really need to travel somewhere, that costs some money. That's a little bit expensive maybe, but there are options if you do have to, or maybe you have a roommate who has a car and you pay for their gas if they take you somewhere sometimes, right? You help them out with that.
Well, I think that's a good point too to think about. Is we mentioned paying cash for the car in high school or just out of high school, but you don't think about the other expenses that come along with it. The maintenance, the fuel, the insurance. I mean, there's a lot of added expenses that go along with having a car. Even if you don't have a car payment, there's a lot of added expenses that go along with having a car.
Yep.
So can you get by without? Can you use Uber? Can you do some of these other options? I mean, now most grocery stores will deliver.
That's true.
So you could even just get
pay a little extra to not deliver. Yeah. But now you don't have that car insurance, so it's you end up saving money by doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of them it's like $10 for a delivery fee. So,
and car insurance is a lot more than that.
Yeah. True.
Another thing besides your transportation would be your housing, and are you willing to live in something that's a little bit cheaper? Maybe live in the dorms for your first year or two, or whatever. Some schools require you to for the first year or whatever. I don't know what they do, but so my first semester at college, I lived in somewhat affordable housing, but I paid a little extra to not have a roommate. So there were 3 rooms and there were 4 of us. So there were 2 in one room, 1 in another, and then myself in one room. And my second semester, I was like, okay, it was ridiculous to pay like an extra couple $100 to have my own room. I can share a room with someone and save a little more money.
Yeah.
And I ended up becoming really good friends with my roommate over the next couple of semesters before I got married. And we still keep in touch to this day, and it was a great experience. And I know, like, you're rolling the dice on that.
Yeah, but it's true. I've known people that had terrible experiences with it. I know people that have had great experiences with it. But another thing that it teaches you, and for some people, there are other options out there, whether it's through your church or through your school or whatever. But there are options out there. But it teaches you how to live with another person. So it prepares you, if that's the choice that you're going to make, it prepares you for having a
marriage, a relationship,
or a family, or living with a partner, or even just a lot of people nowadays that are single will just buy a house together because it's almost cheaper in some cases to buy a house, and if you get 4 or 5 people to buy that house together, then your payment can be very, very low.
Exactly.
And so you can actually own a house with several other people, and it teaches you how to do that too. So you learn a lot more than just how to survive.
Yep. So there's a lot of other ways or ideas to live within your means. We're not going to go into all of them, but we hope that at least those couple of examples get your juices flowing about what are some things, think about cheap dates with your significant other, your spouse. How can we go out and have fun without spending a lot of money? Because you do have to do that. And there's lots of ways you can do that. You don't have to go to the movies to have fun. We had a dollar theater when we were there, so we would go to the movies and we would spend $2, and it was great.
Nice.
But there's so many things you can go out and do for fun that don't cost a lot of money, and there's the internet, which helps you get ideas. So
that's true, and I think too, one of the things that you could do, and I personally think that it's more romantic this way, is cooking for your significant other, whether you're dating or your roommates, married, or even your roommates.
I'm going to cook for everyone tonight, and you kind of take turns doing that.
Yeah, but I know, so when I met my wife, we were going through college, and neither one of us graduated, but that's besides the point. So we were both going to college. We were both very, very poor at the time, right? And so it was, how can we date on a budget? And luckily we had a McDonald's down there that had $1 Big Macs, Big Mac Mondays.
Nice.
So you could get $1 Big Mac, and any size soft drink was $1. So we'd go for like $5 and get a Big Mac. But another thing that we would do that I really enjoyed, she might say otherwise, but for a lot of our dates, we would go to Walmart and get the chicken stir fry that's like $1.99,
Mm-hmm.
and we would get a package of that and some rice and Kool-Aid that's like 10 cents for a packet, and me and a couple of buddies would make dinner for our dates, and we would just sit around the table and we would have a little group date, and we would actually cook for them.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, she might say otherwise, but I really enjoyed that, and I felt like it was a little bit more romantic because you're putting more effort, more energy into that date experience.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we would make homemade pizza.
yeah.
And that costs a couple bucks rather than like 5 or 10 or whatever. So,
But it's something you can do together too.
Exactly.
I mean, you make
and you pick your toppings.
Yeah, you
and
make the
it's
pizza
fun.
dough, and then you get to like pick the toppings, and
Yeah.
maybe make it a little game. I don't know.
So there are a lot of ways that you can cut back on your spending, especially while you're going through college, because if you can avoid that 50,000 or even 15,000 in student loans, that's that much more money each month that you can be putting into your 401k toward retirement,
Mm-hmm.
or toward buying your car with cash instead of having a car payment. Like, it's a snowball effect that happens from that.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about tip number 3.
Yeah, so tip number 3 is, and Perry, you already mentioned this, is getting some help from Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
We may have some listeners that are in other countries, but you may have different options. But here in the United States, we have the federal, free application for federal student aid. I always forget that.
I know, me too. FAFSA.
FAFSA. FAFSA. Free application for federal student aid. So through that program, you can apply for many different scholarships and
financial aid and
financial aid. So you can get grants so
that you don't have to pay back.
Yeah. So the government actually gives you money that you don't have to pay back, and it's all based on family income or personal income if you're living on your own. And so you go in and you put in your information, and they will tell you how much money you'll get. And there's a maximum number and a minimum number and all these different things. And you can choose to accept certain things, and you can choose to decline certain things. But it's a way that you can go in, and it's kind of an all-in-one package where you can apply for scholarships, grants, and student loans all at the same time.
Yeah. And there are so many scholarships that are out there too, that really you just have to find them. And my wife and I didn't get a ton of scholarships, but we got a couple that made a huge difference, and we got financial aid. So my wife didn't qualify for financial aid until we got married because her parents were more well off than mine. So I was able to show my parents' income, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you get a bunch of money," right? And then my wife didn't get any while we were engaged. As soon as we got married, then it was like, "Oh, you're no longer dependent, and you guys are poor together. So yeah, you both get financial aid."
There you go.
And so we got financial aid, which helped to pay for our tuition. Basically, I think it pretty much covered that. And again, our tuition wasn't that much. That was a big factor.
That's true.
But we got good enough grades to qualify for a scholarship that our school did automatically. So if you were in the top certain percentile of your GPA, then you automatically got a certain percentage of your tuition paid for. And so then that government financial aid was able to go towards books and housing and things. Yeah. So, that added up. And then we got a couple other small scholarships. You can get scholarships for, sports, music, academics, your race and ethnicity can, get you some scholarships. Take advantage of that. We can talk, we don't want to get political, right? So we're not going to talk about whether that's fair or right or anything, but if it's there, just use it.
Take advantage of it.
Take advantage of it.
And I was just thinking about this too, but some of you may be thinking academically, or, I'm not good enough to get this scholarship, or I don't have good enough grades. But again, if we go back to where are you choosing to go to school? If you absolutely have to go to Harvard, right? If you absolutely have to go to an Ivy League school, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get that academic scholarship.
Yeah.
I went to Snow College for my first semester.
Half a semester?
No, I was there for a full semester. But I went to Snow College, and at the time, this was many, many years ago, but I can't remember what the tuition was, but in high school, I got a 3.0 GPA, and I got average score. I think I got like a 25 or 26 on my ACT.
Yeah.
So I was not exceptional. I was not above average in any way, but I was able to get a full tuition scholarship for that semester, and I think I would have gotten one for a full year if I would have stuck around, but I chose to not go back to school. But as long as you maintain like a 2.5 or a 3.0 GPA at school, which is not a difficult thing to do. So if you choose the more affordable options for school, then you're probably going to have a better opportunity to get some of those other scholarships.
Yeah. Not only is your tuition cheaper, there might be more opportunities for scholarships, and that can be huge.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, these 3 tips are things that, you can do within school and everything. But our 4th tip can be done while you're in school, or it can be done before. And that is working. So it's nice to just go to school and focus on that and not have to work. But if you want to limit your student loans or avoid them altogether, you may have to work while you go to school.
Yeah.
And my wife and I both did that. And it was hard. I mean, we were taking like 15, 16 credits a semester, and then we were working 15 to 20 hours of work. And it was like having, 2 3/4 jobs, so it was like 1.5, of a job. And that was hard, but we did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a way too, if you, if you work for a couple of years before college, we don't want to think that just because it's kind of this given path that you go high school, college, job, whatever, right? There's no right path. It's whatever works best for you. So if it ends up being that the best option for you would be to work for a year or 2 in between high school and college, save up the money, and maybe
kind of figure out what you like doing.
Yeah, maybe you have $10,000 and you can pay for 2 years of school in cash up front, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So
so working before can be a really great way to give yourself time to reflect and what do I want to do and save up money at the same time.
Absolutely. Help you pick that right school and kind of give you some time to develop a little bit more, mature a little bit more.
Exactly. And then working while you're in school, the school I went to, I assume, is similar to others in a lot of ways, where there were tons of on-campus jobs. And at first, I had no work experience coming out of high school besides janitorial work. Yeah. My parents had a janitorial business, and I worked with them. That was what I did, for my job. And I got paid in food and housing and everything. And I mean, they paid for everything I needed. So I don't feel like it was I was underpaid or anything, and I was happy to help out. But I didn't have that work experience of working at a grocery store. I only worked for my parents. So when I got to college, I was like, I don't even know what to do. And I went to the building where they had you apply to do the early morning custodial work. Oh, yeah. And I got a job right on the spot, because they basically, if you wanted the job, you got it until they were out of, until they were full.
There you go.
And so from 4 to 7 in the morning, I cleaned one of the buildings on campus. And then from 7 to 3, I went to classes and did homework. And then from 3 on, I did homework. And it was, I was tired. It was hard, but it helped me to pay for my books and food and things like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, there's other options like being an ambassador for the school, or there's different programs where if you maybe work a little bit, you don't get necessarily paid in cash, but sometimes they will give you a discount on your tuition, or they'll take some money off, or they'll even, I think some of the ambassador programs, they'll give you free tuition for being an ambassador. So there are other options out there too.
Yeah. Yeah. So and there are on-campus jobs, there are off-campus jobs. And right now, one of the things I've heard a lot on financial podcasts is that we're in a labor shortage. Yeah. And businesses are struggling to staff. Yeah. And so
I see signs everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah.
So when you're in our position, you don't want to go get a $15 an hour job. Yeah. Because we need to make more money than that to pay for our, food and house and family and everything. But when you're in college, that's great. Yeah. I made $7.50 an hour.
Yeah. When I was 18, 19, I would have given a lot for $15 an hour. I think
not quite killed.
Well, it depends on who it was, I guess. Sure. But yeah, when I was 17, 18, I think I was making $5.50 an hour. Like after I graduated, I got bumped up to $6.50. So I mean, you can go out now, and I know the Taco Bell in Springville is $15 an hour to start. So you're making 3 times what I was when I was in high school, which I know cost of living
everything
is a lot
costs
higher.
more. So we get
but
that.
When you're 16, really, what's your cost of living?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
So
it all balances out. But working those jobs, getting
school. The cost of school has inflated more than wages and other things. Okay, so doing this now is harder than it was for me 15 to 12 years ago. I get that, but it's still doable, and there are still things you can do to make that money while you're going to school. So my wife and I both worked part-time, so it's like the equivalent of one low-paying full-time job, right? But that combined with our scholarships, our financial aid, living frugally, all of that allowed us both to complete our bachelor's degrees without any student loan debt. And we didn't have like much saved up either at the time. I think we had like $500, you know? And so then I decided to get a master's degree, which we can talk more another time about. Maybe why I should or shouldn't have done that. There were things I learned from it. There were benefits from it. It didn't help me in my career at all. It was a good experience though. But I continued that grinding, right? Like it really is a grind. I continued that. And I chose an affordable school, BYU in Utah this time. And our department, I knew this going into it, they paid for all of the grad students in the department paid like 70% of the tuition each semester. So tuition was, I think, almost $3,000 for the master's degree. Again, really cheap, right? So I chose an affordable school. And then I only had to pay like $800 a semester of the tuition because the department gave us scholarships to everybody in the department. And it was, it was hard to get in, so it was like selective and everything. But so there were like 5 or 6 new students each year. So we got that. That really helped a lot. And then they said, we really strongly discourage you from having a job outside of this because it's really hard. But we got to teach 1 to 2 lower level classes each semester, and we got paid for that. So that was like our job.
There you go.
Now I thought, there's no way I didn't want to get student loans, and I thought there's no way I can do this without having a job. So even though they discouraged it, I did it anyway. And I worked about 15 to 20 hours a week at a law firm, and I made extra money, and I was able to not get student loans for my master's degree as well. So there were so many factors that combined, right, to make that possible. And one, it was knowing what to do. That's why we're sharing this. My wife kind of knew what to do, and I didn't. So I was lucky to have her. But to give myself some credit, I was from about like 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every weekday. I was either working, studying, or in school, or like helping put the kids to bed. I was doing one of those things. I did not get to relax during the day, and it was hard, and it was a grind, and I worked hard. I did that so that most weekends I didn't do homework, and I got to relax for 2 days a week. And that was really nice. But it was a grind. It was hard, but it was worth it.
Yeah, and to kind of tie that all back to, I mean, we talk about your experience of getting a master's degree with no student loan debt compared to my experience of
getting half of an associate's degree.
I almost made it to an associate's degree. I probably have enough credits to get one, but going through and collecting some student loan debt. I mean, it's not an insane amount. It's not anything unreasonable, right? I didn't go get $100,000 in student loan debt for no degree, but having some student loan debt and no degree to show for it, and tying that back into mental health, right? Spiritual health, physical health, all those things. But your grind to get through that experience, and now to not have the stress of those student loans probably helps you financially in your budget. It helps you not to be stressed so much about your budget where, I look at my budget and I see these student loans and I'm like, I have to pay student loans for something that I don't even use, that I never completed, I never got a degree for. And so it's just an added stress every month for me to look at that. So mentally, physically, it's kind of a downer, in all honesty. And so I think that's something that we can keep in mind here too, is tying everything back together. Is having, even if you have student loans, but you have a good job that's going to help pay for it, or if you have no student loan debt, is going to help you mentally, it's going to help you physically.
Definitely.
And it's going to bring everything back together.
Yeah, exactly. So, key takeaway here, or our challenge for the week is it depends on where you're at in life. Okay, so we're going to give you a couple options for your weekly challenge.
There you go.
If you're already like done with school, you're 40, 50 years old or whatever, and you're not going to go to school again, then the challenge is to share this information with somebody who is about to, start that path or maybe has started it.
Yeah.
And think about who could benefit from this, and share the podcast or just share what you learned and give them some tools to avoid student loans or limit them. Now, if you're on that path, maybe you're like in high school or you just started college, you're thinking about going to college, the weekly challenge would be to figure out what you want to do and just put together a plan. Okay, what school is going to help? What kind of job can I get to make? Put together like a plan, a budget, and figure out how could I also do this, or do I even want to? Right, just figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the other options. So I think that's a great challenge, and maybe some of you are in the same position that I am, where you're long past that opportunity, not necessarily long past the opportunity, but where school is very much on the back burner and not really an option at this point. But share that experience, share your mistakes, right? Teach other people and help them not have to go through the same process that you're going through. So I think that's a great challenge.
Yeah.
So
I think my last thought tying that in is anything you do that is extremely difficult builds character as long as it doesn't break you. Okay, so don't push yourself so hard to where you get broken. I think I kind of felt like I was broken for a little bit after I finished my master's degree, but I didn't completely break all the way, and I feel like it built character. I had something to look back on to say, wow, that was hard and I accomplished it, and it just gives you this confidence. So even if it's unrelated to education and schooling, just think about how that effort that you put into something and then accomplish it, it just really gives you this perspective and this unique oomph, right? I can do hard things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think that's about all we have for today. So thank you for listening. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. Those of you that are watching, again, please help us grow. 5-star, any reviews, really, any kind of comments, like, shares, help us spread the word, help us get it out there. We want to help as many people as we can.
Yeah. And then don't forget to join us weekly. We release these on Mondays, so join us next Monday. And we haven't decided what we're going to talk about next week, I don't think, but we will, and it's going to be good.
It's going to be really good.
It'll probably be our best one yet.
I think so.
So yeah, don't forget to join us weekly on Mondays, and you can find us where?
You can find us on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, Google, YouTube.
Any podcast place, you can probably find it because we use a platform that just pushes it out.
Yeah. So as many as we can get to, we're trying to get out everywhere that we can.
So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Adios.